Okay, so you want to get the real story behind iconic figures, understand what really drove them, but maybe without wading through hundreds of pages.
Exactly. That's what we're doing here. Consider this your express lane to the core of Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs.
Yeah, we're diving deep into his life today, specifically how his, well, relentless drive for perfection, which often caused friction, let's be honest, ended up shaping entire industries.
And our source is Isaacson's big biography, Steve Jobs. Isaacson, he's a serious biographer, Harvard grad, knows his stuff. He had incredible access.
Right. So our mission, basically, is to pull out the absolute key insights. What made Jobs tick? What was his real impact? Maybe uncover a few surprising things along the way. So where do we start? His beginnings.
Yeah, let's go back to the start. He was born in 1955, adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, grew up in Mountain View, California, right in the heart of what was becoming Silicon Valley.
And Isaacson points out this rebellious spirit he had, even as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
mixed with this intense curiosity.
Absolutely. And being surrounded by all those engineers, that whole tech atmosphere, it definitely left a mark. Plus, there's that story about his dad.
Oh, the fence story. Yeah,
Yeah.
tell that one. His dad was a mechanic.
Right. And his dad insisted that the back of a fence they built, the part no one would ever see, had to be just as well crafted as the front.
That's such a great anecdote. The lesson being craftsmanship matters, down to the smallest detail, even the hidden ones.
Exactly. And that idea, that deep-seated need for perfection in every element, you really see that echo throughout Jobs' entire career, don't you?
For sure. So school wasn't really his thing.
Not conventional school, no. He got bored. His real learning came from tinkering, experimenting, and that's where Steve Wozniak enters the picture.
Was the technical wizard. He was a bit older.
5 years older, yeah. Son of a Lockheed engineer. Just a brilliant, brilliant engineer. They were such different personalities, but they clicked.
Kind of the perfect pairing, in a way. Wozniak with the technical genius and Jobs with the, well, vision and the drive to make something happen.
You got it. Which leads us to 1976, the garage, the Apple I.
Legendary stuff, built right in his parents' garage.
And it was really Jobs pushing Wozniak, saying, hey, this hobby could be a business. He just had this natural gift for seeing the potential, for marketing an idea.
Even that early on. So the Apple, I was the start, but the Apple II, that was the game changer, right?
Absolutely. Launched in 77, that was Apple's first real mass market success. Suddenly, Apple wasn't just a hobbyist thing.
And then the company went public in 1980. Made Jobs incredibly wealthy.
A millionaire at 25. Pretty staggering.
But, success like that, so fast, it often comes with complications. Isaacson talks about this, right? His personality.
Yeah, his intensity. It could be, well, abrasive, demanding. Strained relationships started to show, with Chrisanne Brennan, the mother of his daughter Lisa, for example.
And things inside Apple were getting complicated, too. Internal politics.
Definitely. Power struggles were brewing. You see this pattern emerging, this incredible drive, but it often came at a personal cost, both for him and the people around him.
Which ultimately leads to that pretty dramatic moment in 1985.
The ouster. Yeah. He was forced out of Apple. The board sided with John Scully.
The CEO Jobs himself had brought in from Pepsi.
Yeah.
The irony.
Exactly. A huge blow. Forced out of the company he co-founded.
So that could have been the end of the story for many people. But not Jobs.
No way. He regrouped. He founded NXT Computer. It struggled a bit to find its market. Honestly, it wasn't a runaway success like early Apple.
But then he makes this kind of unexpected detour, doesn't he, into animation.
Right, which is fascinating. In 1986, he buys the graphics group from George Lucas, renames it Pixar.
Pixar, which most people now associate with animation dominance. But it wasn't an instant hit either.
No, Isaacson calls it a money pit initially. It was burning through cash. But Jobs believed in the technology and the talent of people like John Lasseter. He kept funding it.
And then came 1995.
Toy Story. Boom. The first ever full-length computer animated movie.
Changed everything in animation.
Yeah.
Huge hit.
Huge. And suddenly, Jobs isn't just the computer guy. He's a major player in Hollywood, in entertainment. It really established him in a whole new field.
And while all this is happening with Pixar, what's going on back at Apple?
Apple was, well, floundering. seriously struggling. They'd lost their way, innovation had stalled, market share was dropping. They were actually nearing bankruptcy.
Which created this almost unbelievable scenario.
The return, Apple was desperate. They ended up buying NXT in late '96, primarily for its software, and that brought Jobs back into the fold.
Initially as an advisor, right? But that...
Then, by 1997, he's essentially running the show again. He becomes interim CEO, the ICEO.
And he didn't waste any time shaking things up.
Not at all. It was radical. He slashed product lines, printers, peripherals, dozens of different Mac models gone, ruthless focus, layoffs too.
He basically ripped the old Apple apart to save it and put design front and center again.
Totally. His design philosophy became the core principle, which leads directly to 1998 and the iMac.
The Bondi blue iMac. I remember those. They look like nothing else.
Exactly. Colorful, all-in-one, user-friendly. It was a statement, it signaled Apple was back, and it was different. It was cool again.
And that's when he said that thing about technology and the humanities.
Yeah, it's the intersection of technology and the humanities that makes our hearts sing.
That really captured his philosophy.
And this is also where his partnership with Joni Ive really solidifies, right? The designer.
Deepens significantly. Ive's minimalist aesthetic became totally intertwined with Apple's identity. That partnership was crucial. So, professionally, it's this massive comeback story. What about personally? The biography touches on changes there, too.
It does. He'd married Laureen Powell in 1991. They had 3 kids. There seems to have been a bit more balance creeping in, though work was always intense.
And his relationship with his first daughter, Lisa.
That began to heal, which was important. So you see some personal evolution alongside the professional comeback.
It feels like those wilderness years, NXT, Pixar, even though they were tough, they taught him things, sharpened him somehow.
I think so, yeah. He learned how to manage creative talent at Pixar. NXT forced him to refine his software vision. He brought all that back to Apple. It wasn't just a return. It felt like, I don't know, redemption.
Personal redemption,
Valid.
yeah. And that set the stage for another wave of products that just changed everything, starting in 2001.
The iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Simple, brilliant.
Totally changed the music industry. And then the iTunes store a couple of years later.
Right, 2003. It wasn't just the device. It was the whole ecosystem. Hardware, software, store,
Yeah.
seamless. That was the magic.
And then 2007, maybe the biggest one of all.
The iPhone. Jobs introduced it as 3 revolutionary products in one. An iPod, a phone, an internet communicator.
And that touch interface just felt like the future had arrived.
It really did. It changed communication, work, photography, everything. How we live our daily lives. A massive cultural shift packed into this little glass rectangle.
You just suddenly had this powerful computer in your pocket. Game changer.
Absolutely. But while Apple was reaching these incredible heights, Jobs was facing his own very serious personal battle.
His health. The pancreatic cancer diagnosis in 2004.
Yeah. And Isaacson covers his initial reluctance towards conventional treatment, his choice to try alternative therapies first.
Which was controversial.
Very. He eventually had surgery and later a liver transplant in 2009. But even through all that, his intensity, his focus on Apple's products, it just didn't waver.
It's kind of astonishing, really. And he kept pushing. 2010 brought another category-defining product.
The iPad.
Yeah.
Creating that market between the smartphone and the laptop. Fulfilling that vision of mobile intuitive computing, the post-PC era, as he called it.
Right. And through this period, that Ive partnership just got stronger.
Seems like it. They were incredibly simpatico on design. And as his health worsened, you get the sense Jobs was really thinking about his legacy.
Seeing Apple itself as the main thing he'd built to last.
Exactly. A company designed for continued innovation, even after he was gone.
Which led to him stepping down as CEO in August 2011, handing the reins to Tim Cook.
Yeah. And then he passed away just a short time later in October.
Leaving behind that quote, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." Still powerful.
Incredibly. And when you look back, the iPod, iPhone, iPad, they weren't just successful products. They fundamentally altered how we interact with the world, didn't they?
Absolutely. He just had this uncanny ability to blend technology with like human experience to make it feel intuitive, desirable.
So, yeah, the big takeaway from Isaacson's work, the thread running through it all, is that relentless, almost obsessive pursuit of perfection.
It drove everything, the products, the breakthroughs, and sometimes the conflicts too.
There's one anecdote that sums it up so well. The original iPhone screen.
Ah, yes. Tell that one. They were going to use plastic.
Right. The prototype had a plastic screen, and Jobs realized it scratched easily in his pocket. He just decided, nope, it has to be glass. Unscratchable glass.
But the launch date was looming, wasn't it?
Totally. Major time pressure. He calls up Wendell Weeks, the CEO of Corning Glass, and basically demands they start mass producing this specific type of strengthened glass, Gorilla Glass, which Corning wasn't even making at scale then.
Weeks apparently said they couldn't do it in time,
Yeah.
that they'd stop making it.
Exactly. He said it wasn't feasible in the time frame, something like 6 months, but Jobs just wouldn't take no for an answer. He was insistent.
His famous reality distortion field in action.
You could say that. His team was panicking, saying, we don't have time, and Jobs, according to Isaacson, just looked at them and said, don't be afraid, you can do it.
And Corning did it. They delivered the glass screens.
They did. It's such a powerful illustration, isn't it? That sheer force of will, believing you can demand the impossible and sometimes making it happen.
It really captures that core lesson. Pushing boundaries takes incredible vision, sure, but also that willingness to just demand more, to refuse compromise on the crucial details.
Yeah, his life, his work, it's a testament to how determination and creativity, even when it's difficult or demanding, can reshape the world. His legacy isn't just the devices, it's that relentless drive.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, thinking about Jobs' intensity, his vision, the products that came from it, maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. How could your own commitment to getting things right, even the small stuff, maybe create an impact you haven't even thought about yet?